Hello, I'm Rick Joyner. Thank you for joining us for this special bulletin on current events. And I want to address some of the major crises of our nation right now. And it is, they are deepening almost daily and becoming more ominous. And it is shocking. I mean, I was talking to some Christian leaders this morning. It is just almost incomprehensible how the meltdown is going, how fast it is going. And it really does seem that we're headed for a meltdown in the value of our dollar, even though it's going to fluctuate up and down some. But for a long time, it just looked like our government was just making some really bad decisions, some bad mistakes. And then the evidence started mounting. No, they are really trying to kill our dollar. They're trying to kill the value of our currency. They're trying to bring our economy to its knees to such a point where we will submit to a one world universal currency or something else. And I admit, looking at the evidence, it looks almost pretty overwhelming now that there are actually leaders in our government that are trying to do this to the U.S. Now, personally, I am still holding on to the belief that no, they're just doing some things really foolishly, but the results are probably going to be the same. And I know some of the top minds in U.S. business right now, and I'm talking about some of the very top minds, they really believe we're headed for an ultimate collapse. That things have been put in motion where we are really going to see our dollar, the value of the dollar, just crumbling to almost zero, and that it will open up all kinds of other universal international issues here. And it does look like we're headed that way. Now, the big question we've got to face as Christians, and this is an important one, are we on the Titanic? Are we wasting time trying to support our government? Are we wasting time, or should we be heading for the lifeboats? The ship is going down. The U.S. economy is going down, is going to sink, and the government is going to sink. And here I want to share my position because a lot of people are wrestling with this issue right now. And we're going to have times when it looks like things are going up. Like, no, she's going to keep on sailing. But my position right now, and I believe this is something I believe I have seen from the Lord. I believe I saw that Ronald Reagan was going to save our nation again. Now, from collapse. Now, he's dead. He's not going to be raised from the dead and come back as president. It's not what he's talking about. In visions and dreams, these are metaphors. I believe it was speaking of Reaganomics. We've got a terrible meltdown going on in the economy. People don't realize how much U.S. capital is fleeing the country right now. They don't realize how many companies, major companies, are seeking another place for their home base because America is becoming hostile towards them and towards business. And they see where it's going, towards socialism. Socialism does not work without control, without totalitarianism following. To the degree you go down that path, there has to be control. Now, we have some of the most ominous things happening in our country right now. One of them is that not only are the rules being changed, the rules of the game of doing business in America, they're changing them retroactively. Listen, when that starts happening, you are in the worst kind of jeopardy. You couldn't do something to create more distrust in business. You couldn't do anything to shut down business more. I use the metaphor of, the government is is supposed to be like a referee in the game of the economy. They're supposed to be sure it's a level playing field and that people abide by the rules and not taken advantage of, and that truth is used when promoting products and promoting investment vehicles, that it's truth, that it's accurate, and that's their place, and they do that better than anybody else. We need the government doing that. It won't work without the referees, okay? But when the government starts trying to play the game, it's like if you could imagine a football game or a soccer game when the referees jumped in and said they're going to start playing it. Take one side or the other, maybe shift sides, and you don't even know which side they're going to shift to next. And the whole thing melts down into confusion. Nobody knows what the rules are anymore. Then they can just start arbitrarily changing the rules. No, we used to have this rule, but we decided that's no longer the rule. And we're going to make it retroactive so that last goal you scored didn't count. And I mean, can you imagine the confusion again? That's what's happening in the U.S. economy right now. By one thing, the government jumping in. And you may have seen the speech when Barack Obama, our president, stood up there and said, the U.S. government will not get into the automotive business. And then right there, basically that day, fired the head of General Motors and said the U.S. government was going to guarantee all car warranties from the U.S. manufacturers. And that's pretty much like getting in the car business, isn't it? You see, they're saying one thing. I don't even know if they understand how conflicted and how contradictory their statements and their actions are. You may have seen when Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann buttonholed Geithner, Treasury Secretary Geithner, about, are you moving us towards the one world currency and and he just says, absolutely not. Bernanke said, absolutely not. In less than 24 hours in a speech before the Council on Foreign Relations, Secretary Geithner said, yes, we're very open to the Russian and Chinese proposal, of a one world currency. Absolute, total flip-flop. One of those was a lie. One of them, there's no other way around, was a lie. We're being lied to almost daily, and then something else is being done. Now, a lot of times, liars are confused about the truth, and there is a confusion in our government right now. There's a spirit of confusion. There's a spirit of deception. People can be speaking and absolutely lying to you and really not understand they're lying to you because they're so confused and they're so deceived. That's why I'm not trying to attribute motives to anybody or plan or anything. I'm not that smart. I haven't been shown anything like that, so I'm not going there. But I'm saying this is where we're headed. We are headed for a meltdown. Another major problem we have, the government has proven beyond any shadow of a doubt, it is the worst manager there is on the planet. There is no question about it. You want something poorly managed, give it to the government. Now, there are aspects of the government, like the law enforcement, because that's what they have a mandate from God to do. The military, Romans 13 gives civil governments a military mandate. So they're not given the sword for nothing. That's military power. And they're in disobedience if they do not use military power to avenge evil. Our military is awesome. The police force, the regulatory agencies can be awesome because that is a mandate given by God for civil governments to do whether they acknowledge God or not. But they're not called and do not have an anointing to do business. When they start getting into business, managing businesses, say we can come in arbitrarily, change the rules on you, remove the boards of companies, even though they only own 2%. Now, they bought into these companies, own maybe 2% of the stock, and retroactively said, that means we can remove the board and put in our own board. We can start managing this thing. We can change wages. They're saying basically, we can take you over now, even though they only own 2%. Now, where's that in the bylaws of the company? What does that do to contract law? This is the contract. The bylaws of the company is what what stockholders assume the company is going to live by these laws. Now the government's saying, no, we can come in and change all that because we now own 2% of it. And you may have seen the testimonies by bankers and all who's saying they gave us TARP money and then came back later and told us what the rules are. So we wanted to give the TARP money back, and they're saying, no, we don't want it back because we want our hooks in you. We want our control in you. So you can't give it back. We're keeping this and we're keeping our control over you. This is really scary. It is frightening how fast we're melting down into the worst kind of chaos, and you will see it. If it continues down this road, you will see it fast reduced to totalitarianism. Do you understand that word? Total control of government over everything. That's where this is headed. There's a saying is, if you don't change your direction, you're going to end up where you're headed. That is where we're headed. How can it be stopped? How can it be turned around? We're going to be talking about this in clear, no-nonsense details. Stay with us. Come back for these special bulletins.